Hey, have you ever experienced something that's just really, really incredible, and then you forgot about it, like, you know, right after, because something else happened in your life? You've experienced this great joy, and then, like, sudden change. My family went on this trip once, and I have this uncle. His name's Steve. My dad's name's Steve, too. It's really confusing. But my uncle Steve, they're not brothers. That would have been really weird if my mom or grandma had named both of her sons Steve. But different uncle Steve. He's like a super, super funny guy. He is always just cracking jokes. And so we're hanging out, and he's got that really dry sense of humor where you don't really know that he's going to be funny, and he's just sitting there staring, and then he'll just say, like, pigs or something like it. It's the funniest thing ever because he says this line that is just out of the blue. And we're like, that's awesome. And so when I was like 14 or so, he says this great jokes. We're just laughing, having this great time. And we're on this trip, and we stop at this gas station, and we real quickly go in and get some stuff. And we pile all back in our van, and we just start driving off. And about 30 minutes later, we're telling jokes, and we're telling good stories, and we look around the van, and we go, "Where's Steve? Where's Steve?" And this is before the days of cell phones, or like right when cell phones are getting new, and my uncle didn't have a cell phone anyway. He's probably still doesn't have a cell phone. And he was back at the gas station. And so we drive 40 minutes back to get him, and he's just sitting on the curb just like this. And he never made a joke again. I'm just kidding. No, he was good. But it was sad because we go on this like trip away. We're like, haha, he's so great, Steve, you're the best. We forgot about you. You know, we have these amazing moments in our lives and we forget. I have this picture up here of a place I visited when I was in college. I don't know if you guys recognize this building. Does anyone know what this is? It's the Taj Mahal, and it's in India. It's one of the most famous buildings in the world. I went here when I was 20 years old and was able to kind of explore India a little bit on a trip. And I go to the Taj Mahal, and it's breathtaking. I mean, the pictures don't do it justice. I mean, you're standing in front of it, and you're like, this is unreal. And we're walking back to the bus afterwards, and I start turning, and it's pitch black, by the way. It's pitch black at night. There's not a lot of streetlights in India. It's a third world country. And so I start turning, thinking the bus is this way. So I start heading this way, and my professor's like, no, Zack, the bus is this way. So I'm like, oh, yeah, I keep coming back. And there was this game I played when I was like a super little kid called Lemmings. And if you don't know what lemmings are, they're those little creatures. They're like little rodents, and they're really dumb. Like, they're really dumb. And so, like, if one lemming leads, the others will follow no matter where they go. Like, the lemming will walk off a cliff, and the other lemming's like, sounds fun, and just starts taking off and diving off cliffs. That's how when your mom is like, oh, if your friends jumped off a bridge, would you? And you'd be like, I would if I was a lemming. And so I played this game, Lemmings, when I was little, and you try to build things to protect the little hamster things from falling off ledges and stuff. So I'm telling my friends, I'm like, hey, you remember that game, Lemmings? Yeah, I'm like that. Unless you tell me where I'm going to go, I'm going to step or I'm going to fall right off. And as I'm saying this, true story, as I'm saying this, the sidewalk in front of me just ends. And it's not like I wasn't paying attention. It was pitch black. So the sidewalk in front of me just ends, and I just fall. And my friend said I fell probably about 10 to 15 feet. I was lucky because I fell on my side. I hit in this ditch, and I hit my hip really hard against this ditch, fell just on my side, and I pull myself out, and I'm really hurt. I'm embarrassed, and people are like, are you okay? Freaking out. And I'm like, all right, I'm all right. My hip hurts, but I'm good. And I look from here down on my side, I'm just caked in mud. I'm like, oh, man. I'm caked in this mud. And then the mud started to smell. And I realized that because in India, there aren't a lot of public bathrooms. And this was an open sewage ditch that I had fallen into and had poop all over me, right? And And so I'm just looking at this and going, oh, like, and in that moment, I didn't think about the Taj Mahal. I didn't think about the fact that I just seen this beautiful building 10 minutes before. I was like, I got poop on my clothes. Like, that's all I could think about in this moment. Get it off, I don't like touch it. I'm like, I don't want to touch it. I want to burn my clothes. I want to set them on fire. It's like 20 degrees outside. It's super cold. It's in the middle of winter. And I'm like, and my friends are like, remember when you saw the Taj Mahal? I don't care about the Taj Mahal. I only care about the sweatshirt. So to me, we have these moments where we have these great things happen to us, and we're so quick to forget. And I think we're going to see that in a story today. I want to connect another quick point to you too. We've been doing this Ascend series, and Josh loves mountain climbing, and he's just a rock star, so we're able to film him just kind of climbing this amazing place. And we want to talk today because we talked about the preparation in week 1. We talked in week 2 about the climb itself. We talked in week 3 about what the view from the mountaintop looks like. Today we're talking about what it looks like when we get back down. And I'm not a huge rock climber. It kind of terrifies me. Heights terrify me a little bit. I admire Josh for doing it. I love hiking, though. And so I love really steep climbs. And for me, the worst part of hiking, I don't know if any of you guys like hiking. For me, the worst part is always coming back down the mountain when you're done. And some people are like, no, that's the best part. That's when it's easy. No, that's when it's lame. Like the best part's the uphill part. When you're like tired, but it's like worth it because you like know that the view's going to be awesome and it's really steep, but you're like encouraged. You're like, I'm getting a good workout. This is awesome. And then you get to the top and you get to experience this view and that's awesome. But then the downhill part's just kind of a bummer because you got to walk for like the same amount of time that you walked up, but you're not going anywhere. You're just going back to your car and you're just going back home. And you have to go back to like reality. You have to go back to the way the world was before you were on this magical, awesome place, this mountaintop. And for me, I always hate that part. And I think Moses really knows how that feels. And I want to talk today and relate to Moses a little bit. So if you have your Bibles, we're going to Exodus. Exodus is the second book of the Bible. If you have your phones and you have an app and you're not going to Snapchat me while we're doing this, and you can use that too. But if you have your phones and you want to go to Exodus 32, that's where we're going to be today. Second book of the Bible, right after Genesis, Exodus 32. And we're looking at verse 1. Verse 1 says, when the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down the mountain, and I want to give some backstory real quick. Moses just led all these Israelites out of Egypt. So they were slaves under the Egyptians. Moses said, let my people go, meaning let God's people go, because he's speaking for God. God says to Pharaoh, you will let these Israelites go. Pharaoh refuses. There's 10 plagues that happen. The Israelites get away. Pharaoh and his army chases them. God parts the Red Sea, uses Moses to help the Israelites escape. They're fed by manna, that's bread from heaven. God has done all these miracles for these Israelites. And then God calls Moses up to this mountaintop. And at this mountaintop, he gives Moses the 10 commandments. You know those big stone tablets that you see. And we like, thou shalt not steal and stuff like that. Those are the 10 commandments. So he gives them those at this mountaintop. And the people are looking around and going, where's Moses? And Aaron, Moses' brother, is like, remember, he's up at a mountain. He's, talking with God. He's having a moment. Let him have his moment. And people are like, where's Moses? I miss him. He's gone. He's gone forever. He's dead. And Aaron's like, he's been gone 40 days. Like, it's like a little over a month. It's not even a full year. And the people are like, yeah, he's gone. He's gone. Let's do something else. So they gather around Aaron, Moses' brother, and said, come make us little g gods who will go before us. As for this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what happened to him. How long did it take for them to forget everything God had done? 40 days. 40 days of God not raining down miracle after miracle on these people, and they've already forgotten him. And they go to Aaron and they say, hey, make us gods that we can worship and stuff. And so Aaron, in verse 2, says, Aaron answered him, take off the gold earrings that your wives, your sons, your daughters are wearing and bring them to me. So Aaron's giving in to this request. And I think that this is us too. We go to Hume Lake or a place like Hume and we have this great spiritual mountaintop moment. How long before we go back to our own lives? How long before we forget what God has done for us? How long before we make little g gods in our own image and we're doing the same things we were doing before? And so they come to Aaron and they say, hey, make us these gods. He says, take off your gold. And he doesn't think the people are going to do it. And they call his bluff because he's like, no, they're not going to give up their bling. And they're like, sure, man, here. They take off earrings and nose rings and belly button rings, toe rings. Aaron's like, oh, it's gross. And he takes all their gold and he took what they handed him and he made it into an idol cast in the shape of a calf. Not like calf on your leg, but like baby cow. So he makes baby cow idol, fashions it with a tool. It probably looks really stupid. It's not like they have like this technology to make these perfect statues. It probably just looks like a lump of junk. And he's like, look, here's a circle of gold, baby cow. And they're like, oh, I see it. It's like when you look at clouds and you're like, what do you see in this cloud? I see dreams, right? Like they're like, I see baby cow. And Aaron says, these are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt. What? The baby cow did nothing. Baby cow was made that afternoon. Baby cow still has Billy's belly button ring sticking out of its nose. Like, it didn't bring you out of Egypt. It didn't part the Red Sea for you. It didn't rain down manna from heaven. God did that. But they're like, this is your gods, Israel. Aaron is so quick to just go with what the crowd said. He's seen God from the beginning. He's walked with Moses. He's done it. And also, just like as an aside, if you're going to make a fake God, I mean, I'm not saying we should do this, but why a baby cow? Like, that's not intimidating at all. Like, if I don't know, I mean, I don't want to tell them what to do because we don't want to make fake gods anyway, but if I was to make a fake God, it'd be like 1/5 crocodile, and like 1/5 bear, like 1/5 dragon, like 1/5 velociraptor, 1/5 hamster. I mean, it would be scary. Hamsters are scary. I owned one once and it bit my finger. It hurt. So you'd make this God that would be a lot more intimidating, but they make baby cow God. Now, there's a lot more to this story. We don't have time to read today, but if you read it on your own, I encourage you to in Exodus 32. But the next part of this is crazy because Moses goes back and forth with God. God's on the mountain. He sees what these people are doing down here because he sees everything. And God goes, I'm going to burn them. I'm going to send down some fire. I'm going to crush their little baby cow. I'm going to turn them all into little baby cows. Now I'm going to send them all on fire. And Moses goes, don't do it. Don't do it. I know they're stupid. I know. Be patient with them. Don't do it. And he has this argument with God on this mountain. And God changes his mind. And that always struck me as really weird growing up. And I went, a God that knows everything, a God that's in control of the future, a God that knows every hair on everyone's head, he changes his mind? And it was really odd to me. And I just want to clarify for you that the word that changes his mind, the way they use it in the Bible, it actually just means that God has changed direction. It means that he has switched what he was going to do, and now he's doing something else. It doesn't mean that he wasn't already planning on switching this. And could it be, too, that the conversation is more for Moses than it is for God? It's for God to allow Moses to have this moment with him where he can pray and plead, even though God knew that Moses was going to plead and beg. And God was always going to show this mercy. But it's a cool picture of that God hates sin. He can't be around it. He wants to punish what they're doing. He hates the sin. But Moses is also able to show God's mercy. So Moses comes back down. And before he comes back down from the mountain, what these people were doing, and I want to help explain why this is so bad, because some of you guys are like, why is God so mad? They just made a little statue of a cow. What's so bad about that? Well, in verse 5, it says, when Aaron saw this, he built an altar in front of the calf and announced, tomorrow there will be a festival to the Lord. So the next day the people rose early and sacrificed burnt offerings and presented fellowship offerings. Afterwards they sat down to eat and drink and got up to indulge in revelry. In verse 5, it says, tomorrow there will be a festival to the Lord, big L, capital L. We're going to now make the idol to this little baby cow, but then we're going to have a festival tomorrow to Yahweh, to God, to who actually really brought us out of Egypt. That's why God's so upset. And then this indulge in revelry, they're throwing this giant party, and they're just doing all this sin in the middle of this party as if it's a church service. And they're linking God in with all of their own sin in their lives. That's why he's so upset. It's like when we think that we go, oh, I'm just going to follow God on Tuesdays, but 6 days a week, I'm hanging with baby cow. But on Tuesday, I'm hanging with God. But Wednesday, I'm going right back to baby cow. And even on Tuesday, I'm going to make sure I don't really care about what God wants for my life. I'm just going to show up. And that's what these people do. And that's why God is so upset with them. So in verse 19, it says, when Moses approached the camp, he saw the calf, he saw the dancing, his anger burned, he throws the 10 commandments, he throws the tablets down, he breaks them into pieces at the foot of the mountain. He takes the calf the people had made, he burns it in the fire, and then he ground it to powder, he scatters it on the water, and he made the Israelites drink it. And that seems really, really harsh and disgusting for those Israelites. And I kind of thought that too, and then I realized, I don't know how many of you have ever had dogs, and they've been inside dogs. One way to house train dogs so they don't, go to the bathroom in the house is when they do go to the bathroom, what do? You know? You make them smell it. You make them smell it. You put their head into the poop. You go, dogs, smell it. And the dog's like, oh, that smells bad. You're like, I know you did this to us. Don't do it again. And then the dog does it again. You're like, dog, smell it. He's like, oh, I don't like the smell. You're like, you did this to us. So eventually the dog won't do it. And it seems painful. It seems really gross. But this is what Moses is doing. He's like, you dumb dogs, don't do it again. Drink the calf, right? And that's what they do. So he scatters on the water. He makes the Israelites drink it. And then he confronts Aaron, his brother. He says, what did these people do to you that you led them into such great sin? Aaron says, do not be angry, my lord. Aaron answered, you know how prone these people are to evil. They said to me, make us gods who will go before us. And as for this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what happened to him. So I told them, whoever has any gold jewelry, take it off. It's like Moses knows what happened. God told him. Aaron's like, but the people told me this. And then they told me this. And then, they gave me the gold and I threw it in the fire and boom, baby cow. That's all, Moses. That's what happened. Moses has this righteous anger at the sin of the people. He throws down the tablets. He makes them drink the melted down gold. He demands to Aaron, what do these people do that you did this? And Aaron just goes, excuses, excuses, excuses. And baby cow shows up. Isn't that true in our own life with sin? I don't know about you guys. I can justify so much of my own sin by just saying, well, I don't know how. It just happened. Well, I don't know how I ended up at that party. It just happened. I don't know how I ended up telling all these lies. It just happened. Well, I don't know how I ended up making this bad decision. It just happened. And there's so often in our lives that we don't know that our sin is built up as a pattern in our lives. And the Israelites had a lot of opportunity to stop. It didn't just happen. Aaron didn't just throw stuff into the fire by mistake. He's acting like it's an accident and then baby cow. That's not how it went. And so the story goes on from here, and there's a really kind of tricky part that I want to help you make sense of. We won't read this part, but if you want to read it later, you can. God has Moses takes some of this group of Levites, who are people who follow God, and he has them put on their swords, and they go through the camp, and they kill 3,000 of the worst idol worshipers. And God commands them to kill 3,000 of these people, and they do. And I used to read this passage, and I went, that's a loving God. Sometimes Christians, we go like, oh, there's passages in the Bible, guys, I just don't like. There's passages in the Bible where I go like, oh, that sounds really mean. And I started looking at it this way, that could it be that it was actually the most loving thing God could have done? And we're like, what? He killed 3,000 people. How is that loving? Well, because there were thousands and thousands more who were going to be corrupted by those 3,000 people. And God is the author and taker of life. He's the one who he decides. And so God is willing to cut off part to save the whole. In the Civil War, there were people who they would get injured in war, and the most common surgery in the Civil War was amputation. 60,000 people had arms or legs or limbs, feet, hands amputated. Do you know why they did amputations? It wasn't because the surgeons were like, I want saws. Do you know why?
Yeah, because they either had a disease or an infection. Right. They didn't have anything to cure it,
Exactly. So they didn't have, yeah, that's a good sound. They didn't have anything to cure the disease. So because they didn't have anything to cure the disease, the only way to save the life of that soldier was to amputate the limb. God is willing to cut off the limb to save the life. And there were people in the Civil War who refused amputations. There's stories of people that were like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to take my chances. And they died these terrible, painful, horrible deaths at the result of these infectious diseases because they didn't just let the doctors take off part. And there's a lesson for us in this. It could be that we need to kill off everything that keeps us from God. And I'm not saying go kill someone if they're keeping you from God. That's not what God's saying here either. God is the one who takes life. God is the one who gives life. What I'm saying here is you may need to kill off a bad relationship. You may need to kill off things that you're watching on TV that you shouldn't be. You may need to kill off things you're listening to that you shouldn't be. You may need to kill off bad influences in your life. You may need to kill off social media that is causing you to constantly compare yourself to other people. You may need to kill off things that are keeping you from God. And I wanted you to know in your life today, what is it that keeps you from God? What is he calling you to cut out? Because it's the most loving thing that God can do is to prune. And sometimes it's painful, sometimes it hurts, but ultimately it's saving. And so I want you to think for a second who you are in this story. Who do you relate to in the story? Do you relate to Moses? Do you relate to someone who has this big spiritual high at this mountaintop, even at Hume Lake or somewhere else, and you come back down and all your friends are making baby cows? Everyone in your life is falling away from God. Everyone in your life is just running and making their own idols, making their own little G gods to themselves? Are you Aaron, who is just so easily swayed by the world around you? He's so easily swayed by your friends, your people that are in your life that are bad influences, and you turn your back, even though you saw God work, you turn your back on him anyway? Or are you the Israelites? Are you people who just, you saw God do all these miracles, but you're so quick to forget? Sometimes we're so quick to forget what he's done for us. And maybe you're sitting there tonight and you're going, just feeling really heavy about this. I know this is a convicting message. I know this is a message that for me, even saying it, I know it's one where I got to go, man, there's stuff I got to cut out. There might be stuff in my life I got to look at. I got to make sure I remove it. Maybe tonight you're feeling the weight of your sin. Maybe tonight you're feeling a little guilty. You're sitting there and you're going, man, I'm just like these Israelites. I made all these promises to God up at Hume Lake, and I came back down from the mountain, and I just immediately fell back into my old habits. I made up all these promises. I cried, and I shed these tears. I gave my life to Jesus. Maybe I even got baptized, and I came back down, and I'm doing all the same stuff again. And maybe that's you, and you're sitting here tonight. I want you to know that there is hope. And there's this beautiful picture of when Moses is pleading with God on the mountain, and he's saying, God, not yet. Don't do it to them, because God hates sin. He can't be around it. And Moses interceded on the behalf of the people up on this mountain. And thousands of years later, Jesus interceded at the cross for us. The same way. I know these people are dumb, God. I know these people go their own way. I know that these people, me and you, make our own mistakes all the time. But I am here, and I'm interceding on their behalf, and I'm willing to die. And God is willing to cut off his own son. He's willing to cut off a limb to save the life. He's willing to kill his own son, allow his own son to die to save the life. Jesus was willing to die to save your life. And you are here because you're forgiven, you are redeemed. And Jesus is still saying to you that he loves you. He's saying to you that you're forgiven. And he's saying to you that you can walk in freedom because of what he's done. Let's pray.